All right, so let's talk about commissions, right? Commissions, in my opinion, is one of those items that is very much misunderstood and it doesn't get talked about early in the process, and then it can become a little bit muddied towards the end or when we actually get into a contract with somebody. So, what are commissions? How much are commissions? Well, first of all, commissions are not standard. There's not a standard commission fee that gets paid to have your house listed or for you as a buyer to pay a buyer's agent. Okay, so if somebody's telling you there's a standard fee, you need to talk to somebody else because that's just not true. Commissions are fully negotiable. Okay, so I'm not going to get into the services that are provided because I think this video library shows that very well. But who pays what? At the time of listing a property, in order for a buyer to exist, there has to be a listing. Okay, so at the time of the property being listed, it is discussed on what the listing fee is, right? It's negotiable. We land on that. At that time, the seller can elect whether they want to offer buyer representation commission as well or not. Now, I would advise highly for a seller not to go in the other direction and say, I do not want to pay buyer representation, because that has a chance of reducing the number of buyers that can, one, buy your property, pay the closing costs, bring the down payment, and on top of all of that, also bring a couple of 3% or whatever the case is for the buyer side agent representation. Okay, so that's why I would highly suggest and advise for a seller to not say, I am not paying the buyer side commission, because it could cost you a buyer. It could cost you to sit on the market longer. It is not as easy to advertise and to advocate. Different agents may not advocate for the property as loudly and proudly as if they would, knowing that you are paying compensation for that. So that it's a slippery slope with a lot of that stuff, but that's how that comes about. But negotiations or the compensation at the beginning stage of the process needs to be discussed. What is that? What does that look like? And what does that do for your bottom line? Let me know if there's any questions. I'd be happy to help.